On today's World Insight, what's next with the rapid advances of cutting-edge artificial intelligence as OpenAI ups the ante with the release of chatgpt-5, touted as the smartest, fastest, and most useful version yet. And as Beijing hosts the 2025 World Robot Conference with an up-close look at human-like AI-driven robots, what do these innovations mean for the world? Answers from today's panel and Professor Xue Lan, the director of the Institute for AI International Governance from Tsinghua University.
Hello and welcome to World Insight with me, Tian Wei. The 2025 World Robot Conference opened last week in Beijing, showcasing more than 1,500 cutting-edge products from about 200 robotics companies worldwide. Humanoid robots are one of the highlights. These smart, sophisticated machines are designed to mimic human behavior. They learn and adapt faster than even before, thanks to AI. The AI industry itself is advancing rapidly. OpenAI, for example, the ChatGPT maker, has unveiled GPT-5 recently, claiming it can provide PhD-level expertise. And the new model is, quote, significantly better than its predecessor, according to the OpenAI founder and CEO. Now, that the new product is widely available to users, how much change might the new release bring to the AI industry? And what about the competition and cooperation in the industry on the future of AI? To answer those questions, let's go directly first to our panel. Joining us, Professor Guy Keke from the Beijing Institute of Technology, Andy Mock, a Senior Research Fellow at the Center for China and Globalization. Last but not least, Mr. Amar Yunus, an AI governance, tech law, and compliance advisor for more analysis on the newly issued ChatGPT-5. Thank you so much for the three of you for joining us now. We understand there is a very exciting international conference on a robot being held in Beijing, wrap up on Tuesday. It is a lot of AI-generated approaches. Now, Professor Guy, I'm sure you are having some fun on that as well. Tell us more about what the next level of innovation is this conference presenting to us when it comes to robots.
In the upcoming future, the AI-enabled robots will become like the mainstream. Because nowadays we can say that we can do a lot of like very good job in control. But if we combine the AI like into the control system, we say like for example the embodied system. That means we need like a upgrade level of the integrated technology. Also, security and privacy is also another concern for the future system, because like people always concerned about the usage using the robots in practice, because there are lots of sensors embodied in the robots. So that means we have like a wider scope of like data collection. So this actually leads to sometimes the security and privacy concerns. And I think in the near future, we can see a lot of like of fields that can use robots. But another thing is that whether we do need robots in those fields. For example, nowadays we like people pay attention to humanoids robots. So that means like we actually need higher level technologies to support the whole system. But actually we have a lot of like mature technology already in our hands. When not use like traditional technology as a like fundamental or infrastructure for robots to provide like mature applications or services.
Humanoid robots have been in China for a while. You saw over the past 2 or 3 years at the traditional Chinese festival gala. Humanoid robots are dancing all their way to the audience. Meanwhile, you also see humanoid robots running the half marathon in Beijing. Though a lot of technicians were following the robots to make sure it's not going to run into problems. You also see that in some of the kickboxing competitions among robots. So it's not a rare thing, but what do you think about these kind of testing, trials, and interaction with human society like to improve the humanoid robots to the next level? What can we say about that?
Well, Wei, I think we absolutely have seen some really exciting developments, and these are necessary because many robots will be used in consumer-facing applications, whether that's at home, maybe side by side with a human worker in a factory. Driverless cars we can consider a form of AI-powered robotics. So this is very, very important. I mean, clearly, people around the world, less so in China, but certainly in the United States, for example, there's a lot of anxiety about artificial intelligence, about robots. So I think if we want to lay the groundwork for wide-scale adoption, that's important. But I think, Wei, an even more important point is that the obstacles now are not so much technological as they are economic. In that if we have to pay 100,000 US dollars, 50,000 US dollars for a robot, that's going to make it quite inaccessible for many, many people. And similarly, like we saw with electric vehicles, it took a BYD to offer a sub 10,000 US dollar electric vehicle. Similarly, I think this is playing to China's strengths. It's not only that Chinese consumers are eager, very open to try new things, including robots, but China's manufacturing capacity, I think, will allow it to be one of the first, if not the first, to offer a truly effective robot that can be bought by millions, if not billions of people. And the last point I want to make, Wei, is that these kinds of robots, humanoid form factor or otherwise, can also be applied to making even better, even cheaper robots in what some people call recursive innovation, using AI to make better AI, using robots to make better robots. And we'll see this virtuous cycle, I think, start to accelerate, particularly in China.
How big an opportunity, rather, is this going to be for industries?
I think the good thing is that applied scientists are actually talking about topics such as security by design, AI alignment, like how to align the human values with the robotic values and vice versa. And even they are aware of existential threats. So I think that there is a balance in China, which is coming from the proactive governance, I would say. The laws are very active, they are very progressive, and the lawmakers do consult with the applied scientists, which is very good. This means that there is a kind of enabling for responsible experimentation. And of course, in the institutions, we see different sandbox. You cannot just throw out a humanoid robot. You have to trust the robot and to see that its societal impact. And I think that the broader framework, which includes the risk management or the transparency and the ethical oversight, both from the scientists and from the government, is present.
So that
in
is
case
going
of
to help the industry in other words. That seems to be your answer to my question.
Yes, exactly. The innovation is being encouraged. On the other side, it is not on the expense of the public and the safety, I would say.
Earlier, we have been seeing with the GPT earlier version, a very exclusive groups of users can have access to it because of its entry fees, and also many of those are closed source rather than open source, unlike DeepSeek, which was developed earlier this year. And a wake-up call for everyone that really not really about the US-China competition, but really about another approach of AI models. So having said that, though, Professor Guy, how do you see from that different approaches this GPT-5, which also claims to be open source, in a way, tell us about the latest landscape?
Well, open source projects do have advantages in promoting technology, but they also face like security challenges and abuse. I believe that on one hand, like relevant laws and regulations need to be improved for sure, and on the other hand, technological upgrades are needed because like our primary focus in this area includes like technological advancement in data security, resource abuse, and system vulnerabilities. It does matter because, for example, GPT-5 is a tool. It can generate a lot of contents, but whether the generated contents follow the laws and regulations, this is that kind of the issue we always pay attention to. So that means I think we need to have like a balance, not only for like a GPT-5, it's too, but also for the whole ecosystem. We need to have a good balance on it.
What we are seeing from the latest development of AI models is a variety of choices, both open and closed sources. And now, how much option do you think that provides for developing countries and the global south, as the other two gentlemen earlier briefly illustrated?
I think that the open source plays a very critical role in accelerating innovations by making powerful tools both for developing countries and developed countries. I think that this openness is actually encouraging experimentation among scholars coming from the developing backgrounds, and faster knowledge breakthroughs are emerging because these tools are freely accessible. We have seen a similar debate when there was intellectual property, and there was a debate that intellectual property is incentivizing technology or vice versa. But now this intellectual property debate has been replaced by open source debate. But the questions are same, that do we need open source for incentivizing technology or vice versa? So in both cases, we have seen that the developing countries and scholars coming from the users coming from these countries have more benefits if there are open sources. But I think that in the long run, both the closed source and open source models will coexist because we need both. Coexist sources approach will remain important because we need security, reliability, and compliance, especially for highly regulated industries. But on the other side, open source will thrive. The flexibility and customization and the community-driven progress, which are the priorities for many countries. I think that the future is likely a hybrid model that will blend the both strengths of both coming from open source and closed source.
A very interesting discussion on the latest model of ChatGPT-5. Having said that, though, we are going to have another conversation with a leading scholar coming from China, Professor Xue Lan, director of the Institute for AI International Governance from Tsinghua University, after this break on the global cooperation on artificial intelligence governance. Joining us, Professor Xue Lan, Director of the Institute for AI International Governance from Tsinghua University. Professor Xue, always a great pleasure to see you. Thank you so much. And now let me ask you about your response to the latest development in AI applications such as ChatGPT-5 and how they are comparing to some of the other models.
I think people are still testing, testing how, how to compare to others. But I think it's great to see that, there are always, new versions of various models coming up, and I think that's sort of the fun to see. This seems to be an indication of some strategic change at OpenAI. I think we know that actually open source or closed source, I think this sort of, at the micro level, it's more of a company strategy. Now we're getting to the stage of where probably wide application is going to happen. So I think open source may have the advantage. It gets easier to be diffused, to spread. So I think that company may think about twice about what their strategy should be.
We have seen some rhetorical changes over the past few months when it comes to AI, for example, between China and the United States. Earlier, after DeepSeek was born, the U.S. administration official suggesting that as a wake-up call, quote unquote, against the competition on China. And then a few months later, we have seen both the Vice President of the United States suggesting, quote, fewer restrictions around the development deployment of AI, and suggested earlier approach as too risk averse. Now we also see the track 2 dialogue between China and the United States, in which you personally participate, along with former Chinese Ambassador Cui Tiankai and a few others from the Chinese side, with your American counterparts. What exactly to you is the nature of this intertwined relations on artificial intelligence between China and the United States?
Yeah, I think here, I think indeed, I think, of course, we all talked about, how AI can generate huge benefits for the human society, but also we should not forget that I think there's also the potential risks that, AI might bring, in various aspects. I think the Yash Benjo led the international, task force generated a report on AI safety. And I think there are three kinds of AI safety as AI risks. One is more of the harm, the intentional, the harms generated by intentional use of AI to produce, problems. And the second is more of a malfunction. And the third is more of a systemic, risks. I think on the second one, there's a potential challenge that if someday that the AI is getting more powerful and getting out of control, and that's something that we are all concerned about. So I think it's AI safety, despite the geopolitical competition, rivalry, whatever you call it, between U.S. and China, but the AI system out of control, that's a common threat we're facing as a humanity.
Both U.S. and China, back in the year 2023, already signed what they call the Bletchley Declaration, in which both countries have claimed that they are going to work together to deal with some of the earlier unexpected consequences you suggested, Professor Xue, about the future development of AI. Now, can you tell us, almost 2 years, what do we see besides Track 2 and also the UN Advisory Commission, which has been established by the United Nations? Any specific credible platform for real policy consultation to deal with now already widespread innovation that is coming every day, it seems, in the media?
First of all, I think there's not a wide consensus on the potential risks we are facing. So even among the leading experts, there are indeed people who strongly believe that we are getting very close to potential so-called AGI, and that might bring huge potential risks. And there are people who don't necessarily believe in that.
So the doomsayers and the non-doomsayers, in a way.
Exactly. But I think in the national community, I think feel this is something that we need to worry about, and that's why the UN had this. So I think various mechanisms trying to guard against potential risks and trying to see whether there's a potential a platform. Certainly, especially a conference summit that I think it's a tremendous progress, and now that we've already had the four three summits, and so I find it's a very active part of that, and so we see that. But also, in addition to those global efforts, they're also bilateral between U.S. and China. U.S. and China, there's an official dialogue, last May in 2024 in Geneva. So it's an official talk on AI, a safety issue. And as you said, Track 2 dialogue has been ongoing, and so I think all of those efforts are focusing on how actually there could be specific mechanisms being established to guard against potential risks. There's one, I think, tangible effort in pushing that, which is grow out of the Bletchley conference. That is the AI Safety Research Institute's network. And that part, I think it's potentially, there could be sort of, technical efforts trying to establish some safety standards, testing methods, and implementation mechanisms. So I think that is potentially one possible way.
Congratulations on what has been achieved, but one has to ask that ultimate question: is the speed of developing the governance structure and consensus really catching up with the latest developments of technologies and coming up, churning out of apps all over the world, applications all over the world?
Well, I think certainly, I think technology moves much faster than the regulatory and then the governance systems. I think there's no doubt. So that's why I think for people who are working on the governance side, working on the safety side, people are really, really worried about. And you don't want to have a car without a brake getting on the road, and that's what I think many of the people are talking about. So I think I think the AI Safety Research Institute network, while that's a very potentially useful platform, but at the moment, China is not part of that, and so China is hoping to be able to join that platform, and so that we actually can jointly develop those potentially standards and testing methods. At the Shanghai the World AI Conference, China also proposed to have a new platform, to have the International AI Cooperation Organization.
Professor Xue, you are really the insider, not only on governance issue, but also working with different stakeholders when it comes to the AI governance issue. So when it comes to China, the quantity of data is certainly almost at the top of the world. And yet there has a lot of discussions about the quality of the data that can be used. What is your take on the latest situation?
Yes, I think indeed, I think China has a very, as you already said, I mean, large quantity of data, and the quality of the data is not optimal. I think certainly there are many efforts in both in terms of government policy, and also we have a government agency in charge of really on data issues. I think the critical thing is, how do we have market mechanisms to really allow so the companies, individuals, and so on, so they have the incentives. How do we build up the incentives for people to focus on producing quality data to use? I think the good thing is that the data is, the more you use, the more you are generating more.
I see. What about data privacy? I mean, on the one hand, you really need data to be a public good in a way, so that more and better AI systems, applications can be a possibility. But on the other hand, data privacy is also crucial for sustainable supply of data in the future. So, Professor, your thoughts?
I think here really comes to so-called data governance, and basically, I think, for example, you have various many of the data that companies private data, and they certainly don't want to share that with the public, and so then you have some technical methods so that you can use a big model while also allowing the company to maintain their the privacy of the data. But you also have situations you wanted to pull the data together. For example, for use, you want to pull the more data you can pull together, then the more information you might be able to generate. So there, I think there are of course various ways that you need to, first of all, to try to see how technically you can maintain the privacy of the patients, but at the same time be able to get the feature of the particular feature of the data useful analysis. And there, I think, of course, there are more procedures you have to follow, but also you have to use it. So there's a combination of technology, market mechanisms, and also the policy and governance rules.
Professor Xue, as you know very well, more than anyone, I guess, there are so many, there are three different factors, data, computational power, and the energy that needs to be consumed in order to develop AI. But besides that, as a public policy scholar, Professor, how to develop a systematic approach when it comes to not only research about AI, but also applications of AI, the use of AI, and how does that interact with the human society? It's a big question.
When we talk about the AI's application and widespread into our daily life, we probably need several things. The first thing I think is how do we make sure that it's safe? So that's why we think about the government regulations to guard against potential risks. So that's probably the first category of policy and governance. The second set of issue is how do we actually design relevant infrastructure for the technology to be used? This infrastructure includes both hardware infrastructure, but also institutional infrastructure.
Right.
Let's think about, you use the transportation as one example. Of course, when you think about when car first introduced into society, it's not just a car. You need infrastructure, for example, you need a gas station, right? You need to have road. So that's hardware infrastructure. But also, you don't want anybody to just to get on the car and drive it. So people have to pass the driver's test. So that's an institutional infrastructure, right? So I think you have speed limit, you have seatbelt, regulations. So many of those things have to come with the use of the technology. So I think that's probably the second set of the things. The third set of things is the market regulation. You want to, it's a fair competition, not just dominated by a few large companies, particularly now when it gets to the specific application, you want to make sure that the market is open and so that smaller companies with great ideas can flourish. So I think those three things have to work together.
Wow, it's really a fascinating conversation. I'm sure many of the important aspects that you suggested, sir, today will be further discussed as time goes by. Thank you so much, Professor Xue Lan, as always. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
And that's all the time we have for today. Over the years, we have been producing a series of key interviews on some of the stakeholders on artificial intelligence called AI and I. I'm sure our discussion about that will continue. That's all the time we have for today. If you'd like to know more, search World Insight or check out our YouTube channel. Follow us on X and Facebook. I'm Tian Wei on behalf of the team. Thanks for being with us. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye for now.